What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. And in this video, I'll be taking you through the ultimate guide to the upcoming Game Week 3. So hopefully Game Week 2 has gone good for you guys. Unfortunately, if you guys have seen my transfer plan, it went pretty terribly, except for that juicy Mo Salah assist at the death. That has given us a few more points at the end of the day, but still a pretty big red arrow. Let's see if Game Week 3 can liven things up a bit. Now, as always in these ultimate guides, I'll be going through the clean sheet odds and projected goals, rounding off with the Captaincy debate, which this week might be differential. We're also going to cover two very important talking points in between though. The first one is, should you guys wildcard? And the second one is going to be PALMER, what to do with him, and if you're going to take him out, who's the best replacements. So actually a pretty jam-packed ultimate guide, so let's get straight into it, sit back, relax, and let's get into the talking points. Now the first talking point, we're going to start off as always on the clean sheet odds. Now this week, we have a bunch of teams on the same percentages, so please excuse the color combinations here. I usually try to get 5 teams per color, but this week, it's simply impossible. So basically what we have is we have 4 green fixtures, 4 pretty bad maroon fixtures, and then a whole bunch of teams in between. So let's focus on the rosier side of these clean sheets, and the number 1 team this week is going to be Manchester United taking on Burnley at home. And they have a really respectable 47%, so if you guys do have Manchester United defenders, this week is pretty much the best week you're going to get. We then have a slight drop off to my favorites, Nottingham Forest. I have the double up, so this week finally, can we get the clean sheet? I generally think there's probably a great shout since West Ham have been so bad. Otherwise, Chelsea options, Sanchez my goalkeeper, yet again could this be another clean sheet, before finally Aston Villa on 34%. Now the reason I said 4 kind of great fixtures and then a bunch of teams in the middle is just look at the drop off then. We go to 30%, then have a bunch of teams on 28% as well. You guys can go through those teams if you want to, but probably raising suspicions are going to be Manchester City as well as Liverpool. And I'll also be starting Pedro Porro, who has Spurs on 30%. We then have a few teams in that pink fixture range, basically the 20%, 19% range, before finally the 4 bottom teams, rounding out with Burnley on 10% against United. So even though there aren't that many great defensive fixtures, I think a lot of us do own the teams that have green fixtures, which makes me hopeful that a couple of clean sheets could be making their way to my FPL team. Let's now skip ahead quite quickly to the projected goals, the more exciting part of these kind of stats. And once again, we have those 4 great fixtures, then a bunch of teams in the middle. So the Captaincy debate this week is going to be super tough. I think Manchester United definitely are where most eyes are looking, as they've got that Burnley at home game, and naturally the highest projected goal scorers at 2.3. We then have a slight drop off though to Chelsea as well as Spurs and finally Man City, and that's why for myself Erling Haaland is a pretty comfortable Captaincy choice if you guys do own him. A little bit annoyed here that PALMER once again might be missing another game week. I captained him in Game Week 2 when they won 5-1 against West Ham, and I probably would have done the same against Fulham. All eyes will be on that press conference though. If the Chelsea manager does give us any indication, he might be back in the debate, but giving him the armband when he might be injured is quite a risk. Not too many of us do own those Spurs assets, but if you guys do, you could go there, but I think generally it's probably United or going differential. That is, if you guys don't own Erling Haaland, as I said, I would captain him if I did own him, even though he blanked in Game Week 2. Now you guys might still be looking at someone like a Mo Salah, super reliable. That Arsenal game though is going to be super tough to call. As you can see, both teams not really that high projected goal scorers. We do have some super cagey games, potentially Wolves-Everton might be quite a boring one. If you guys do want to go for maybe another striker option, Chris Wood, I would probably say those projections are quite on the low end. 1.75 against this West Ham team, I'd probably expect them to score more. I think the last fixture of the game week probably will have my attention. It's Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace. The Aston Villa projected goals are actually quite high considering their game week 1 and 2 form, especially with how good Crystal Palace have been from a defensive point of view. I guess if you guys do own a Mateta and a Sarr, the projections are not giving you much hope, although they projected to score at least 1 goal. Would have liked to see that a bit higher if I was to look at one of their options. Unfortunately with Newcastle, I guess their projections are quite low against Leeds because they don't have a striker at the moment. Anthony Gordon could have been there if he didn't get red carded. Very kind of weird week though for the projected odds. I think a lot of these games are tough to call, and that's why you have to maybe go for the no-brainer fixtures. and that's why most people are looking at Bruno Fernandes as their captain. You guys let me know what fixture you think is actually going to have the most goals in it this week. I'm generally hoping that Aston Villa finally do score some. Now the next talking point is going to be all about the wildcard. Now first off, I want to give you guys the description that the wildcard is so situational, so team dependent. It's very tough for me to say that you guys should or shouldn't wildcard. What I generally will say though, in my opinion, most of the teams I've seen over on Twitter don't need a wildcard. And if you guys really did need it, I'd probably prolong it till game week 4, as this week's matchups aren't too great. You guys would have just seen that in the numbers. There's not many fixtures this week that are absolute no-brainers. I'd even argue that United Burnley might not be as banging as people are expecting. That's why one more week of information, there are a few fixture swings heading into game week 4 that could be advantageous. Especially with Liverpool playing Arsenal, don't think it's necessarily the week I'd look to target their assets. Just such a tough game to call. Even if you do call it, it's probably quite low scoring. And with the transfer window only closing after game week 3's deadline, I think just try and prolong it as long as possible. But as mentioned, it's your guys' team, it's your situation, it's your decision. But I would advise to probably hold off at least till game week 4 if you guys can. I honestly haven't really seen that many teams that need it over in the community. But if you guys are really struggling with this decision, what you can do is comment down below, or maybe even better, post your team as a screenshot in the Discord server, and that gives me the full amount of context and I can help you guys out. As always though, any other questions you guys do have, the Discord server is the best place, link in the description. What I will say about the wildcard though is maybe make a wildcard draft and then compare that to your current team and see if many players do change. I did this for myself and the majority of players actually stayed the same. If you guys have decided to wildcard, I'd be interested in the comments down below. You guys actually post your wildcard draft. Maybe it might tempt me a little bit more. Now the next talking point is going to revolve around cold Palmer as well. It's warming up a bit though, as it seems like he might not be ready for game week 3. And as you guys know, after game week 3 is an international break. So my expectation is that he probably will be missing game week 3, even if it is a precaution. He then gets the international break off, can recover fully, and then he might be back for Brentford, which is a really strong game. The concern might be though, is that maybe if the injury becomes worse or he needs a longer amount of rest time, missing that Brentford game and then the fixtures after that aren't too appealing. That's why all eyes will be on that press conference camp later in the week, or even if he's back in training, because the conclusion we have at the moment is the scan was better than expected and the injury wasn't that bad, but it was caveated with the fact that Fulham might come too soon. So what I would probably say is that if he does miss Fulham, I think it might be quite good to take him out and go for some more attacking options. Not to say he hasn't been attacking, but he just hasn't been that great. What you guys can also use called Palmer for is you can simply just bench him though. If you have a bench option that has a relatively okay fixture, that gives you enough, you can maybe roll the transfer then. If he is out for Brentford, you can do another transfer addition using the one that you just saved. There are a whole bunch of strategies to actually do. I think all is going to rest on what the manager says on Thursday or Friday. At the moment, I'm keeping, but if he's confirmed out against Fulham, it might be tempting to shift some funds around. So on that topic of shifting funds around, the one move I've actually been considering is dropping Palmer down to someone like an Anderson. At 5.5, it gives me a whole bunch of money in the bank. The reason I'm saying that is that what I can do then next week is after Arsenal play Liverpool, I can go for either Gyökeres or Ekitike, as that gives me enough money to upgrade Mark Guéhion. Now yes, I know Mark Guéhion just scored in the League Cup game yesterday, but still don't exactly know how long he's going to be nailed for. And I personally feel like Ekitike or Gyökeres is going to be essential pretty soon. So it might not be the most appealing transfer. Yes, Anderson is pretty boring, but it allows me to shift some funds around and therefore go to a 3-4-3 formation. But if you guys aren't too keen on that, you guys can go for some other options in the midfield department. Let's go for the most popular one at the moment, and that's Cunha. So if you guys did this move last night, you would have got the price rise to 8.1 million. But it's a reminder that United do play tonight against Grimsby, but I doubt that maybe Cunha even features. So the obvious reason that people are going for United assets is that Burnley at home game, because I would probably argue after that the fixtures aren't too great, although Brentford and Sunderland before Liverpool might be appealing enough to go for him. I think I read something over on Twitter that Cunha is the only player that has risen in price but blanked in both weeks, so hasn't started the season off too hot, but I know the stats are looking okay. I think him being transferred in probably describes the motion that United still have, even though their performances haven't been too great. So my thinking about Cunha is I don't really think it's that bad. I mean, Burnley, Brentford, Sunderland, you can't go wrong with those fixtures. It's just Man City, Chelsea and Liverpool sprinkled in there that might make this a little bit of an average one. And that's why personally I think that you guys might save some budget and go for some cheaper options. And the first one's going to be Semenyo. Now Semenyo might be a little bit knee-jerk. I mean, I owned him last season and he didn't do much for me when I did require him. But he started the season off quite well, even though Bournemouth haven't been fantastic. Now I guess this will be the real test of Spurs' defense. If they can keep yet another clean sheet against Bournemouth, that's going to be pretty strong. But the fixtures after that don't look too bad. Brighton, Newcastle, Leeds, Fulham and Crystal Palace. I'd probably say they're not the best fixtures, pretty mid-run at the end of the day. But he is a bit cheaper than Acuna and his form is better. My last option though is going to be Sarr from Crystal Palace. Now that Eze's left, maybe they'll rely on Sarr to be a bit more of a talisman. And you pretty much bring him in for that Sunderland West Ham back-to-back double-up. Now like United, the fixtures aren't that great, but I think the Crystal Palace ones do look stronger, as Aston Villa haven't looked that great recently, and I guess neither have Liverpool, and this is a home fixture. When you guys do look at the projections of points, Sarr, Semenyo and Cunha are actually pretty close, and therefore you guys could actually save some budget and just go for Ismaila Sarr who's cheaper. Now of course there are a bunch of other options, but these are my three favorite besides Anderson. I didn't want to highlight him here as you guys might think I'm too boring. If you guys have taken Palmer out though, or if you are expecting to, who's your current replacement? Let's get an indication of what the percentages are going to be split by that Game Week 3 deadline. Now the final talking point is going to be Captaincy, and as mentioned this week, there's a few popular options, a few more owned options, but I think this week might be slightly more differential, basically whatever United player you guys own. That might be why people are kind of going for Cunha as a Palmer replacement. They might not own Bruno Fernandes. I would say that Bruno is my favorite option this week from United. Yes, he missed a penalty, absolutely skied it over the bar, but just imagine if he did score that, got the DEFCON points, he would have been on for an absolute haul. I think he would be the most popular option this week if he did score that penalty, which I know didn't happen, but I guess it could have. I probably would say that he's my current captain at the moment, especially with the doubts around Cole Palmer. Palmer might have been a close second. That Burnley at home fixture is quite hard to ignore. Now at the end of the day, I'm not expecting the most here. This is United after all. They could absolutely not score here, but if they do, I just hope Bruno's involved. I also think a pretty safe option is going to be Erling Haaland. Brighton don't have the best defense. I can see them conceding. I mean, they did just concede 2 to Everton. I think if I did own Erling Haaland, I probably would have the Captaincy armband on him because he's a bit more reliable, and of course playing far more forward than Bruno Fernandes at the moment. And even with the blank in Game Week 2, I think Brighton is a very strong fixture, will be quite attacking, and that's why if you guys do own him, I probably would go for it. I don't, and therefore if I don't go for Bruno, it's probably Mo Salah again. What's with captaining Mo Salah in these pink fixtures? I would try my best though to not captain Salah, as I just feel like this fixture isn't a great one. I feel like there might be goals in it, but it's just too unpredictable. Generally though, Mo Salah, if you do look at the averages, he's not a bad captain. He has been leaving it quite late in Game Week 1 and 2, which might be a concern, but quite a bit of a drop off between Bruno and Salah this week on the projected points. So as always, let me know who your captain is for this upcoming Game Week 3. Is it a United option? Can we trust them? But if you guys do own Erling Haaland, I don't think there's much excuse not to go there. As a Liverpool fan, always will be shouting up Salah in this game. Just don't know if he's got the high ceiling out of my team. Now, if you guys have any other questions, drop them in the comments down below on my Discord server. As mentioned, I can't go through every single talking point, but if you do have any questions, the deadline stream is a great way to drop them, and that's going to be 1 hour before the deadline most game weeks. Stay tuned for my team selection come later in the week where I do decide what to do with Cole Palmer. Is he a sell or is he a keep? This is basically our video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please like it and subscribe if you have subscribed yet. Tons of content still to come up for the rest of the season, so make sure those notifications are turned on. But for the time being, I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers, bye.